What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Rath's Learning Curve again. It's college fantasy football for week one, the Thursday slates. We're recording this, and we're going to go ahead and show you another screen share. What we're going to talk about today is how to utilize FanDuel and DraftKings salaries to find value. What I can tell you is when you compare FanDuel salaries and DraftKings salaries for week one Thursday slate, you're going to see a big difference right away. You're going to see that people, are saying that FanDuel salaries are tight and that DraftKings salaries are loose. And you're going to see why. It's actually very, very substantially. And so what that means is you have to play it different on both sides. So let's go ahead and get over to that. So for DraftKings and FanDuel for the Thursday slate, got it filtered by position, and we are sorting it by FanDuel, high to low. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Make sure it's good to go. All right, so we got Devon Boykin, Marquise Williams, Brandon Doty, Anu Solomon, Mason Rudolph, etc. down the line. So we got about 14 quarterbacks here that we feel are worth taking a look at. So one of the things I do, I line up the FanDuel and the DraftKings salaries, and I take a look at where the price differentials are, and I calculate the differential. So you'll see the biggest differential is from FanDuel to DraftKings is Matt Linehan, quarterback for Idaho. He's only 4,400 on DraftKings. He's the cheapest DraftKings quarterback. That's pretty substantially low. Definitely somebody that you want to, because he's so cheap, and Idaho's got a pretty good passing attack. I do think Ohio could be able to put up, some pretty good points against Idaho. Their defense is pretty bad. But in this spot at 4,400, if I get a quarterback I know it's going to throw a ton, I definitely want to take a look at it. Not that he's great, but it definitely is somebody that I want to look at. On the flip side, there's one quarterback who's actually more expensive on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. That's because FanDuel mispriced Thomas Zerk, quarterback from Duke. So he is a must-play on FanDuel for me. He's a no-play on DraftKings. So definitely somebody I'm going to be looking at on FanDuel. Have to construct the right lineup, and that's something we're going to go over in another video. I don't want to just roll him out there. I've got to make sure that I've got players in that lineup that are going to help cover in case Zerk has, a dreadful game. But I think at 5,100, the floor is there. Another guy that I think you can take a look at, because I think they're going to have to throw, is Cooper Rush. You see here, he's only 5,200 on DraftKings, so he definitely stands out to me as somebody I'm going to want to take a look at. The other guy that potentially you might want to look at is Johnny McCrare from Vanderbilt. Western Kentucky's defense is not very good, but Vanderbilt's offense is actually pretty poor as well, so somebody I'm probably not going to take a look at. A guy I'm looking at, is guys in this 8,100, 9,200 range. Get a little bit more value here over on DraftKings. Not a ton, but a little bit. Mason Rudolph at 8,100, Anu Solomon at 9,200. Definitely two guys to take a look at. It's here you don't get a huge salary break on DraftKings for the top two quarterbacks, so definitely something you want to consider. Also, I look at what the percentage of the cap is. That's something that definitely stands out for me. Again, you can use differential or percentage of cap, whichever one works for you. Pretty much you're going to identify the same. But again, this is where I'm going to be able to identify pricing inefficiencies in the market between FanDuel and DraftKings. Let's jump over to another position. Let's go with the running backs. And we'll see here that, the biggest differential is Jared Baker, who's a backup running back for Arizona. He's only $3,000 on DraftKings. He's bare minimum. The thing that's interesting about Baker is he's actually listed as a co-starter on the official depth chart for the team. However, most everybody knows it is Nick Wilson's job. But if Jared Baker plays a half of football against a very bad Texas San Antonio team, he actually could hit value in a very quick hurry. So that's something I'm going to consider, and I'm going to keep definitely keep on my radar because he's so high priced on. He's way too high priced on FanDuel. I would never consider him, but at 3K, where I have to have 2 flex spots on DraftKings, Jared Baker is somebody I think you would definitely want to consider. Elijah Penny is another guy you can consider over on DraftKings as well. Again, we got a huge price differential. We're getting these guys at very rock bottom prices. Let's dip down a little bit. Devin Spalding is an interesting guy because he's not listed as the starter right now, but he was the main running back for Central Michigan last year. So that's somebody that we can definitely take a look at. And we're going to run down the list here. This guy jumps out to me, AJ Ouellette. It was 8,900, one of the top shelf running backs on FanDuel. Gotta love him on DraftKings at 6,400. He's going to get the rock a ton. There's really no backup running back there. So Ouellette going against that bad Idaho defense, I think Ouellette, great price. Even at the 8,900, I do like it. Elijah Hood, we talked about in the game notes video. He has been named the starter. Even though it's probably going to be more of a timeshare, again, at 3,600 with a double flex, Elijah Hood gives you salary relief if you want to roll with some big quarterbacks along with a guy like Jared Baker. So, again, that's what we're looking at when we're building lineups. So we're going to go down the list a little bit. Another guy I like, and I like him on both sides. I do like him maybe a little bit more on FanDuel. Roderick Williams, Minnesota's going to try to run the ball a lot. David Cobb was the running back last year. So, again, I think we get good value on Roderick Williams here. David Williams is somebody to look at. Again, it sounds like there may be a timeshare situation with Brandon Wilds and David Williams, but at 4,300, I'd rather drop down and pay $3,000 for the Arizona backup running back Jared Baker. Nick Wilson is a guy that we're looking at, but again, top shelf price, so that's something. And we talked about Wilds and Leon Allen. Not a lot of salary relief here. So what that tells me is their pricing is probably a little bit better and more affordable over on FanDuel. These are guys that I'm more going to consider on FanDuel. Leon Allen is probably more of a FanDuel play at this point based on what we know with Western Kentucky's wide receiver situation. Let's go over to the wide receivers. You're going to see a big difference. There is a tremendous amount of value on DraftKings at the wide receiver position, starting with the number 1 guy, Desmond Epps. He's only 3,200. You get a 46% differential from FanDuel and from DraftKings. I actually liked him at 5,900 on FanDuel. See the big difference here. You got Latavius Rayford, who's the number 1 wide receiver now in Vanderbilt. You're only having to pay $4,000 over on DraftKings for him. So, again, I'm looking at Epps and Rayford as guys that you probably want to plug in because you're getting tremendous value. Let's go down here and see any of the other particular wide receivers. Anthony Rice is somebody I think you can look at as well. Number 2 wide receiver, Central Michigan. Here's the thing that really hurts is you get Dangerfield from Western Kentucky at 5,900. However, he's not 100%. He hasn't practiced, and it sounds like he's not going to play. If he does, he's not going to be well. So what that tells me is, Tywan Taylor's the next guy up. So he's only 4,800. So I think you get tremendous value on Tywan Taylor if Dangerfield is out. Another guy you got to like on DraftKings is James Washington, number 2 wide receiver for Oklahoma State. They should throw the ball quite a bit in this game, and you're getting them at a really rock bottom price at 4,500. Caleb Jones as a number 1 wide receiver, you're getting at $2,000 cheaper on DraftKings. I even kind of like him on FanDuel. I think Arizona's going to put up some monster points. So I think you're going to want a piece of the Arizona passing game. Listenby from TCU is a guy that really jumps out here because if Josh Doctson's not 100% and Deontay Gray is out, Listenby becomes kind of a value play. Jesse Kroll, number 1 wide receiver from Central Michigan, extremely cheap at 4,100. Getting a number 1 wide receiver at 4,100 is a great deal. So again, somebody we can look at in that more of a tournament play for me probably at this point. You might be able to roll with him in cash as well because you think you're going to get volume. Brandon Shepard at 6K. I even like him at 7,300. Number 1 wide receiver for Oklahoma. And we're going to drop down here. And Pharaoh Cooper is a top shelf wide receiver, somebody that I'm probably not going to have any lineups because I just can't fit the big running back and the big quarterback and the big wide receiver. There's just tremendous value at the wide receiver position, especially on DraftKings. I think that you want to pay up at quarterback, pay up at running back at least 1 spot, double flex maybe some cheap wide receivers or a cheap running back that we know is out there. But I think there's huge value on DraftKings this week. FanDuel is very tight. It's hard to make some lineups on FanDuel. Still worth it, but again, I think easier to play on DraftKings this week for Week 1 Thursday. That's how we look at the salaries and how we find value and how that dictates what we're going to do on a weekly basis. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Again, another teaching point here. Hopefully we bring this strategy to you and you can use it every week. We're going to have all these videos posted up on rotocurve.com. Join us back here again for more college fantasy football, Rath's Learning Curve videos on Week 1 college fantasy football. Thanks again.